Okay. So, what is your teaching style for ESL?
It's pretty much my teaching style for anything, except it's a little more. It's more interactive with the students. You have to work with them. You can't just give them busy work to do. So we're almost. That's why it makes it hard when there's different levels, because you almost always have to work with them.
So you guys get the concept, right?
And are you teaching different levels at the same time? Okay, so like in the same class setting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like this is 3 different levels right here.
Okay. And how do you have to like differentiate kind of your teaching?
Well, I'm fortunate enough to have Miss Garcia does the ESL 1As, and then I do the 1B and the 2As. Differentiate in terms of,
like, I guess, do you have to differentiate in teaching styles? Because you just said that you have to work with them like pretty closely.
yeah, I mean, I have to. The more advanced ESL can do a little bit more independent work, but they really can't do much independent. So you have to stay right with them. I mean, I just left them right now for a whole period, and they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
And how long have you been teaching ESL?
About 10 years, I think.
And how did you start out in ESL?
When I had taught 6th grade when I first came here, history and English, and then I switched to a reading lab, and I did the reading lab for 2 years, and when I tried to get back into 6th grade, I couldn't get back in because you lose your seniority for 1 year. So the only opening was ESL. And I took it, and then I've stayed here ever since because I really like it. I really enjoy it.
And what role does ESL play in these students' lives?
No, it's to me, and one of the reasons I do ESL is because it's so important. They have got to become proficient in English if they want to succeed in this country. They just have to. There's no 2 ways about it. And ideally, to be proficient in Spanish and proficient in English so they could be bilingual. But my main priority is the English when they come in here, because I can't really control the Spanish. I figure if they went to school in Mexico, I don't know if you know how the ESL students are. A lot of our ESL students are not true ESL students. They are students that were either born here or came to this country, when they were young, 2, 3, 4 years old. So they have actually been in American schools and English-speaking schools since, kindergarten, some pre-K. And for whatever reason, they're not grasping the language the way they should. I have students right now in my ESL 2A, which is a fairly low level. It's the lowest intermediate level, that were born here. So for 6 years, they were in an American school with English and exposed to, 1st grade curriculum, 2nd grade curriculum, 3rd grade curriculum, and yet they come to me and they can't, and they have to test out. It's a flawed system in that when the parent is registering them, there was some box, if they checked it, that Spanish is spoken at home. Spanish, get over here. If Spanish is spoken at home, they automatically put them in ESL when they should. I've seen other... It's an interesting pencil. It's very strange.
Now look at me.
Most parents who really know what's going on, they would never let their kids stay at ESL for more than a year. 2 would be maximum. So you figure these kids can be there, and sometimes it looks like the district or the state is trying to address this issue, which I've been talking about for years, because they were sued. The state of California was sued because they were not providing the ESL students, which they're not even going to call them ESL anymore. Now they're going to call them English language learners. I don't know that it matters what you call them. They're still the same students. But they were not providing them with what it took to succeed. And from teaching all these years, they're right. They haven't. And they have a tendency, especially this district, to adopt a program and stay with it for, who knows, 4 or 5 years, and then adopt another program, and then another program, and another program. So it's really hard to master any one, I don't know. All I know is I'm reading a big, thick book, and no one ever asked me what I thought. But when I first came here, I didn't understand why there were so many ESL students. And my goal right away when I realized what was going on was, you need to get these kids in regular English. You need to get them proficient, and they really only need to get basic. They don't, which is 1 grade level behind. But if you're only 1 grade level behind, you can still succeed where you're at. And some of the comments I got from administration and coordinators was, well, if they're not ESL students, then we won't get the money because we get more federal funding. That's why we're being sued. We get more federal funding if we have ESL students. And I said, so you mean we're going to keep those kids back to get more money? And they just kind of looked at me like, they didn't say yes, but yes, that's what we're going to do.
So are there more ESL students now as opposed to 10 years ago? Or?
No,
Okay.
less. Okay. And I think there's been other teachers just like me. We just push and push and push. Whatever was going on before, I just ignored it. And my goal is to get those kids out of ESL as fast as I can, because that's the way for them to succeed. The dropout rate for ESL students in high school is like almost 75%. That's how high it is compared to the English. Oh, I don't even know what they call them, English only or English first or whatever. But that's how serious it is. And I knew, because when I worked in Chicago and I taught Polish kids, and they were true ESL students. Like, they would come here and they didn't speak a word of English. And yet, in a year, gone, regular English. So whatever they were doing was certainly much more successful than what we were doing. And even my doctor is Chinese, and she came here and she was in ESL, and when the school told her parents that she would be in ESL for 3 years, they said, no way. And they pulled her out a year.